Welcome to the Unshackled Moms Alliance podcast. This is a space where we empower moms just like you to navigate the challenges of raising kids in today's world. I'm so glad you're here, and you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like or the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Okay, so before we dive in, I have some exciting updates. Registration is now open for the Unshackled Moms Alliance retreat in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's happening September 25th through the 29th. So if you've been looking for a space to recharge, connect, and grow alongside some other moms, this is it. Registration closes June 25th, and we have both payment plans and pay in full options available. Look below for the link that. Also, want to keep an eye out. Registration for the Unshackled Moms Alliance online group is going to be opening soon. Our first session kicks off in early April. Now, I can't wait to go into more details with you later. So, now let's get into today's episode. So I am so excited. Trina Roberts is our featured guest today. She spent years teaching kindergarten, including the year that I adopted my youngest. Amazing. Love her. Caleb, today she's going to bring her wealth of experience to help us understand early reading, how to detect barriers like dyslexia. Whether you're a mom of a struggling reader or just want to be proactive, this episode is packed with wisdom that you're not going to want to miss. So let's dive in. Welcome, Trina, to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I have known each other for quite a while. Our boys were raised together.
We have.
And like I mentioned in the intro, there was a special little boy in your classroom a few years ago. So you got to see that whole adoption process. So that was kind of exciting. So you spent a whole long, rich career in education for being a kindergarten teacher, and now you're a reading specialist. Can you tell us a bit about how your journey in education began and what drew you to educating young children?
Well, my first experience with it was actually when I was in high school, and they were looking for high school students who would go volunteer at the elementary school, which was just up the hill, maybe 100 yards away. And so I was the first one to volunteer, ended up in a first grade classroom, and I loved the teacher that was there, and I loved the kids. I was able to do a little bit of teaching and reading. Mostly I was there to help correct papers and walk around and help students with their work that they were working on at that time. And I don't know, I just decided after a year of doing that I really wanted to become an educator.
That is so interesting. I don't even know if I even knew that about you, because that is almost exactly the same track that I had. We had a similar program in Priest River. As one of my classes, I was able to go into the elementary school, and I spent my junior and senior years in high school in the first grade classroom. Loved it. Loved the teacher that I had that was there. That was my master teacher. And a lot of times she knew that I wanted to teach. And so she'd give me over to, like, I do the opening, circle time, that kind of thing, and just like fell even more passionately in love with it. And then was sure that I wanted to teach first grade my whole life. And never, not once a year, did I teach just first grade. So you taught my son, I think we mentioned a little bit during a very pivotal time.
Yes.
What is it like to be a teacher during such significant transition in a child's life, especially for kids who might be going through trauma or change like foster care and adoption?
You know, when I was in the middle of it, I didn't realize the importance of it as I was doing it. And I think through my experience, I just have always loved kids. Mm-hmm. And just take them under your wing and let them know that you care about them. And when I look back on it, I realize how important it was and how much I hopefully helped him and through it. So I think that's my biggest recommendation. Just love them and listen to them and be there for them as well as teach them.
Yep, so. Absolutely. And today you still see a lot of kids that come from a lot of trauma. I know that, is your school officially a Title I school?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have
So you
Yeah,
deal with that on a day-to-day basis
yes,
still.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you were in Priest River, which I think Priest River is Title One as well,
Yes.
and so lots and lots of issues that have to do with kids that, go to a Title One school. So I love that. But so as a single mom, you raised both of your kids, one who struggled in school. How did your personal experience as a parent shape your approach to teaching and supporting students, particularly those who may face learning challenges?
Um, well, I think one of the biggest things that I learned is your kid is more than just a learning disability or more than just a struggling reader. And as you're teaching them and guiding them and helping them, whether you're the teacher or the parent, you still need to have fun with them. Make what you do engaging and exciting. Do some dancing, play some games, go out and still enjoy life. I think some parents get too fixated on the problem that the child's struggling with reading or struggling with math, and they forget to enjoy and have fun with their kids. Yes, be there to help them and support them through their learning struggles, but don't forget that they're still just a kid.
Yeah, I think that is so true because I think a lot of times, and I was guilty of this too when my kids were little, it's just like somehow feeling like my kid's success is some kind of reflection on me. So if there's, a learning disability, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to make it, so we're better. But really, kids don't fit into a mold. They all have their
Right.
own unique special things, and you just have to be creative and figure out ways. I know that we used to put shaving cream all over the kitchen table, and we practiced our spelling words, and they would like do those. We could do it like we did it different colors and different things. You
Yeah.
just had to kind of like learn how to think outside the box.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot online nowadays that can help you. There's programs that you can get clicked on that do make learning a lot of fun. Some of them cost, some of them are free. You just have to research and always ask your child's teacher.
Yeah.
They know about all those programs and how to help your kid the best way.
Yeah. Well, what happens if maybe my student is not in the best classroom? Like me, I not everybody can love me, right, as a parent. So maybe I don't really get along with my teacher. But kids surviving, how can I connect with that teacher and get some resources?
Um, I haven't had that experience, and I know a lot of people do have that experience. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe because I was teaching at the school where my kids went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing is just connect with them and talk to them. Let them know that you're a partner teaching your child together. Um, Even ask if you can come in and spend some time in the classroom,
Yep.
helping the teacher out
Yep.
and helping your child. And you can see their style of teaching. And maybe you can even use that as you're helping your child in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're consistent in the way that the teacher is doing things, then it helps. And I know that there's a lot of parents that come into teaching with bad experiences in their past, whether it was middle school or high school. And I think just connecting with that teacher and letting them know, I'm a little bit nervous here. I'm a first time mom, first time doing this. And how can you help me? And how can I help you?
I love that. I love that. And really coming into it as how can I help you? Right? Like as support, not versus like, okay, look, you have been mean to little Mikey, and so I'm gonna be in here and I'm gonna like look for every little thing that I can find wrong. That
Mhm.
does not connect you with the teacher and doesn't help your child in the
Right.
long run either.
Right. And I know occasionally there are teachers out there, but honestly, they're few and far between of those teachers who are just mean for mean's sake. I would say maybe 1% of teachers out there in the world. The teachers that I know really care about your child. They're not out to get them. They are there to help them and teach them and work together with you to make your kid the best that they can be.
And I think the other piece is, we do not pay teachers or educators enough, right? And so, like, if your teacher is there and they're, teaching your child, they're not doing it for the money, they're not doing it for prestige for the most part. They're doing it because they really do care about kids and they really do care about whether your child succeeds.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So, what advice would you give to moms who are concerned about their reading program? So, that's a little piggyback on what we just talked about. And then, what is the right time to reach out to the school, and what should they expect from in the process?
Okay, let me clarify that they're concerned about the reading program or they're concerned about the progress of their child.
So maybe when they have older siblings and they have this younger student, maybe like first or second grade, and is just really struggling with reading and is not getting like the sight words and just and so they're just concerned that their child is not learning to read, or there may be an issue like dyslexia or something else. But they're not sure because like the parent, we don't know all those connections with, like, maybe
Right.
grandma says it could be dyslexia, or maybe it could be something else. Like, how do I go? What's the process to go and get some help?
Well, I've been a teacher for 26 years, and the process of teaching reading has changed many times from when I first learned how to become a teacher to what we're doing currently. Um, and so the teacher might have a lot to share with you that you don't know and aren't familiar with the most current practices. I think the best thing was what I mentioned earlier is go in there and talk to your teacher. And if the teacher contacts you ahead of time and says, I think your child's struggling, really listen to them, find out how you can help. I had a student recently that qualified for special ed, and his father decided not to do special ed with him, and he turned it down. So he came in, and I actually spent, I don't know, a good half hour or so training him how to help his child. And he had good questions of what happens when this happens if he's struggling with reading or this happened. So go in there and be open, see if your school, if the teacher herself doesn't have time to do it, there's usually an intervention specialist like myself that can help do training of parents and help them. So your question, the first thing to do is contact your child's teacher and say, hey, I've been noticing this. Are you noticing the same thing? I want my child to love learning.
That's great. So I'm a parent and I am terrified of going to approach school because I had a really bad experience throughout school. We touched on this a little bit. So it's intimidating sometimes. So what are some ways moms can feel more confident and empowered when advocating for their child? Like in meetings and different things like that.
I know coming from a teacher's perspective, I've always taken that into consideration because I grew up with a sister who had bad experience in school, and she was always very tentative in talking to the teacher because she felt less than and maybe not qualified to talk to that teacher. But you are qualified. You are your child's parent. You know more about your child than anybody else does. Go in with as many or as much specific information about your child that you have, and try to talk to your child's teacher as openly as you can. Tell them specifically what you're noticing, what's happening if they have to do homework in the evening, how your child's behaving, and that teacher should be open. I can't imagine teacher not being open to talking to you about helping your child as much as they can. You have to remember, yes, that a teacher went to school to become an educator, and they do have their bachelor's, maybe master's degree, but they're still teachers, and most of them are still moms, and they're doing it because they love your child. Sometimes what you may want to do too is find that special teacher at the school that you do connect with, and sometimes talking to them first. If you have one that you particularly liked that your child had, and they can even lead you to a discussion on the best way to talk to your current child's teacher.
I love that. And if you have a teacher that is connected in the elementary school that you just kind of really feel connected to, you can ask them to come to a meeting as well, right?
Right. Yeah. You can invite them and join them. And yeah. So then both of you are there advocating for your child.
And then, so it sounds like one of the things that would be helpful is to maybe keep a journal for a couple of weeks and just kind of write down things that you're noticing at home with homework and that kind of thing so that you have that physical thing in front of you. So when you're talking to the teacher, if you forget or if, you're trying to think about it, you have that there. You can kind of share those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just be aware of small things that your child does. Sometimes, as a teacher, we don't see things that you see as a parent. For instance, if your child is holding that book close to their face, then and mention it to the teacher, maybe it's just an eyeglass thing and they're having problems seeing. And it's something as simple as that. If you're noticing them doing backwards or upside down letters, talk about it and let the teacher know what it is that you are seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though maybe you dropped out of high school or maybe you didn't ever go to college, does not mean that you're not an expert on your own child, that you can go in and share about him. And then together you can work as a
Absolutely.
team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what kind of observations? Oh, we already talked about that. Never mind. So are there specific questions that moms should ask during meetings to educate to ensure that they're addressing their child's needs effectively? So like an
Um,
IEP meeting maybe, or if like your teacher's like, you know what, I think maybe there's some extra help. What kind of questions or what can they do to get the information that they need? But
so if your child has been diagnosed with a learning disability and they actually do have an IEP, which is an individualized education plan,
yep.
to help your child be the best learner that they can be. Find out things like, will they always be in the full class environment? Will they be pulled out of the class to work with a special ed teacher, either in small group or one-on-one? If that's the case, in those classes, what will they be working on? Some kids just really need that small group setting in order to be productive and to learn for their best ability. And so find out where they're going to be learning at, what happens if your child is getting upset or really struggling with something. Do they have a chance to go to a separate classroom and learn? Are you reteaching my child? Is it I taught them once and mostly done? Or is there a time during the day where they're learning the same thing in in a different environment so they can learn differently? Those are some of the questions you can ask.
That's good. So it may be that you're learning, say, nouns, right, in your regular big classroom, and then your student being, pulled out in a small group, and then kind of reteaching what nouns are in like kind of a smaller, more bite-sized pieces. Is that what you're
Right.
saying happens
Yes.
sometimes? Okay.
And if
Okay.
we say you're learning about nouns, instead of in the main classroom, maybe they just verbalize it and talk about it and make a list of nouns. They might go to their specialized classroom and they get out magazines and they're cutting them out and pasting all the nouns on. They can do more hands-on stuff. They can do more individualized things in those small classrooms. And in all of the schools that I've worked in, the intervention teacher, the special ed teacher, and the classroom teacher try to stay connected in the way that they know what's happening in the classroom. So, for instance, if you're in a first grade classroom and you are focused on all of the words with long A, like AI and AY, they're also going to be learning that in the intervention classroom, and the special ed teacher will be doing the same thing. So, they're practicing it repetitively in different types of settings.
So chances are you're the specialist and the special ed teacher and the teacher are meeting together, and so you're kind of working as a team. And so this teacher may say, okay, so this next week we're going to do long A words, right? And then the what is it, interventionalist, right?
Intervention.
Yes. So then that teacher will follow up and say, okay, Monday, I know that we're doing this because we met together. I'm going to create a plan to kind of like help reinforce that.
Yes. In my school and most schools across the United States, we have weekly meetings, and you're meeting with all your grade level teachers, as well as the intervention teachers and the special ed teachers. And they're saying, okay, this week we're learning this. And they'll even talk about specific about children that are struggling, whether behaviorally or educationally, and say, what are you doing in your class to help him or her? This is what we're doing in ours. And they make it so it's consistent through all the classrooms your kids visiting.
Is there a connection between behaviors and kids that struggle in school?
Absolutely. Not 100% always, because sometimes you have that student that struggles and they just become quieter and sit in the back of the classroom. But there are ones where their struggles come out in behaviors because they're so frustrated by what they're asked to do and it's too difficult for them. Instead of looking stupid or not not doing it correctly, they would rather not do it. They might explode. They might just have refusal behaviors, anything like that. So it definitely can. That's why teachers a lot of the times are trained to how to deal with those behaviors with a child, to get down on their level and talk to them and help them by finding out what the problem really is. And, sometimes the kid doesn't even know what the problem is. They don't realize where they're coming from because they're still little guys and they're still learning how to deal with their behaviors and their emotions.
Yeah, and especially in the primary grades, they don't always have all the tools to express those powerful emotions, right? So if I'm angry or frustrated and I can't really tell you, the teacher, that I'm angry or frustrated, I might explode, I might behave, awkwardly or whatever. And then as you get older, in the bigger grades, it's like then the peer pressure kicks in. It's like, I don't want to be different and everybody's getting this. And so I'm just going to be the class clown, or I'm going to then the behaviors, scored out in so many other different ways.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's taking um, the smallest thing to connect with your child, leaving a sticky note on their desk, noticing, oh, you're extra cranky in the morning, so here's an extra snack for you. It could be that you're hungry. And the teachers take the time to get to know their kids like that so they can help the best they can.
Yeah, and those kind of techniques also can transfer to home, right? Like it
Yes.
goes a long way if you just put like a little sticky note on, next to their bed or in their lunch, or you just extra hand on the shoulder. Hey, good job. You know, Giving a little extra snack sometimes between that. It creates, there's so much energy that goes into going to school all day that a lot of times when your student comes home, they're tired, they're cranky, and they're hungry.
Right.
Like they burned off a lot of
Yeah.
calories. And so, it's so important to like be recognizing those triggers versus looking at just the behaviors, looking at the why
Right.
behaviors.
Right. Well, and home is a safe place for them also.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully school is too, but home is more safe for them. So you will see more behaviors at home. And another way to connect with your child's teachers, if there's behaviors escalating at home, talk to your child's teacher. Maybe they're seeing some of the same things, and you can work together to come up with a plan to make your child the most successful that they can be. And occasionally you'll get a phone call from a teacher like that. Hey, I'm seeing this. And they're usually not calling to point fingers and to say that you're a bad parent. They're saying, how can we work on this together? And are you seeing this at home? Or is something going on at home that I should be aware of?
Yeah.
And when we call and ask that, we're not asking that again to point fingers. We're asking that. So if we have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on, we can be more aware of it. We can know better how to help your child at school.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's not, just to reiterate, because I think so many moms that I talk to feel guilty, right? They feel like somehow their child is an extension of them. And so if their child's misbehaving, they might not share it because they're embarrassed. but really your child's teacher is your partner, is part of your team. And it's so important when you see a change in behavior that you both are watching it together, that you're kind of, being able to assess. And there's so much schooling that goes into the teaching and the for teachers about behaviors and about all those things. And they can help. Like, okay, well, I'm seeing this at school and this is working at school. You might want to try that at home. Or, and vice versa. I'm trying this at home and it's really working. And teachers can kind of help incorporate that.
Absolutely. And if it's consistent at home and at school, then your child also knows, oh, mom's talking to teacher or dad's talking to teacher. So he's aware what's going on. Teacher's aware of what's going on at home. So it's not a scary thing. And it becomes, both places can become home.
Yeah.
Because you're all getting along. You're all working together.
When is it important to call the principal in?
I think if it's not working with the teacher and if there's consistent problems over and over again, ones that are reoccurring and you don't feel like issues are being resolved or you feel like you're being blamed for anything or there's no respect coming from the classroom teacher towards you, that might be a time that you go in and talk to the principal about it.
But you should make an appointment first, right?
I would definitely talk to the office beforehand, before you just pop in, and take a moment if you're upset about something to calm yourself before you go into that appointment, because the principal's there to protect the children. She's also there for the teachers too, to stand by their teachers. And a principal knows her teachers. She has to go into classrooms to watch them teach, see how they interact with kids, and they know how that teacher works best. So they do know how their teachers are.
When is a good time, or what are some signs that show that maybe we should switch classrooms? Is there a time that should happen?
I've heard of that happening. I laugh because it happened to me one time that a parent accused me of infecting her child with lice and demanded that their child be pulled out of my classroom. I wasn't, but sometimes if you really feel strongly about that, that would be something that you would talk to the teacher. And you really have to have a good reason for that, I believe. If there's some very specific things that are happening and that you can point to that. But I would definitely talk to the classroom teacher beforehand, even ask to set up a meeting with the teacher and the principal at the same time. Not very often do I hear of kids being moved from one class to another class, and there has to be a good reason. But at the same time, you want that child to be successful wherever they are. So if you really feel there is a personality conflict for whatever reason, and that they're not being successful because of that teacher, then do take it up with the principal and be honest with the teacher also.
So it sounds like what you need to do if there's an issue, you need to be offering to come and volunteer in the classroom so you can kind of see what things are happening. You and be supportive while you're there, not come there as on the defense, but on the offense.
Right.
How can I be supportive? How can I help? And if there's still a struggle, meeting with the teacher, maybe one-on-one, and talking a little bit about what's happening, and ask her some open-ended questions. Like we talk about curious parenting, it's also important to do curious talking to your teacher, right? Like, tell me about this. Let's talk about this, right?
Yes.
And then if that isn't working and there's still a conflict, then making an appointment with the principal when you're calm and saying, okay, these are the things that I've tried. These are the things that I'm seeing in my child. I'm wondering what else the next steps are. I'm feeling like I need to move my child, but what are you thinking? Because like you say, she knows or he knows those teachers and knows kind of where to like plug it in, and may say, you know what? there was a trauma in their personal life, and so there are some things that are happening right now, but I will go and offer support. So can I offer support, and then we'll see how things go, or they may say, you know what, let's switch classes, or whatever that looks like. And then you have that opportunity to, like, you've done everything that you can, because really, even if you have a teacher that is struggling with your child, like personality wise or anything like that, um, I think a lot of times that things that get overlooked are the connections that students have with each other in the classroom. So
Yes.
it is a trauma to move your student from one classroom to another classroom, even if the teacher is evil or whatever, adjective you want to provide.
Right.
You want to, like, make sure you support as much as you can, and moving in the classroom as the very last ditch effort.
That's what I would agree with. And even backing up from there, if your child comes to you with a complaint or something happened in the classroom, not saying that your child's a liar, but some children look at things differently than what an adult looks at things, and they can't see the big picture of why the teacher did what they did, then find out from the teacher as well as the child. Sometimes you'll find out that he changed a few small things to make them look better than what the teacher looks. And so don't automatically 100% take their opinion or what they said is 100% foolproof, exactly right. Because they see things differently than you do as an adult and as a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. So my job, I work from 7 in the morning maybe, and then I don't get home till like 6 or 7 at night. And I just don't have time at work to call my teacher and discuss these things. But yeah, I'm having issues. What are some alternatives that teachers respond to?
Oh, there's so many things that they do nowadays to get a hold of parents. There's always your teacher's emails. Some teachers are open to texts and share those phone numbers with teachers. And they usually have apps like the Remind app, so you can get a hold of your teacher through that. I would say that if you're getting home at 6 or later in the evening, that you can go ahead and email them or text them then, but you can't expect that the teacher will be able to answer because they're with their family at that time.
Yep.
But you can connect in that because that's when you have time, and they will get back to you as soon as they can.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. And sometimes it means saying to your boss, I just need some time to go talk to my teacher. And right. As long as it's not on a consistent basis, I think most employers, in my experience, have been pretty open to that.
Yes. Well, and sometimes it's even something as small as writing a note and giving it to your child and say, make sure your teacher gets this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can even add a reward to that. If your teacher gets this, then you'll get something, piece of candy, extra reading time with me, whatever it is they enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's shift to some older elementary school student questions.
Okay.
Just sure. We have. So for moms with older elementary school students, how can they tell if their child is still struggling with reading or other learning difficulties, even if those struggles weren't apparent in the early years?
Sometimes they will come up just because as they get older, they have to be able to read larger words. They have to be able to comprehend. They have to be able to learn 5 new vocabulary words and read a story that has context in it that is teaching them, not just a fictional story that they're enjoying and having fun with. I think one of the first indicators would be if your child is in, say, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and they're still having to sound out small words in order to figure out what that word is, that's definite indicator. If they're struggling with larger word comprehension, that's another one. If they read a book to you and you're discussing the content of the story, and they can't answer simple questions like, tell me what happened with this character, or who are the characters in the story, or what's the setting of the story. Of course, if it's fiction, If it's a nonfiction, you'll be asking them things like, what's the main idea of the story? And what were the details in the story? Now, I had a student a few years back who's on to the middle school now. This child was the most fluent reader that you heard. He could read fluently. I think the goal was around 120 words a minute. And he would stop and I would say, okay, what was the main idea of this story? What did you read about? And he would have no idea.
That was Caleb. He could read like crazy, and but to regurgitate back what he read or ask questions, no clue.
Yeah, those are some of the indicators that they might be struggling if when they go to write a sentence, because writing really does go hand in hand with reading, and they can't write a sentence that makes sense. That could be another indicator that there's some what they call dysgraphia there, that goes with his writing.
That's good. Okay, so that brought up two other questions I was thinking about as you were chatting. One is last week we talked to Jamie and we talked about the importance of reading to your child. So it sounds, or with your child, like and she had some great ideas for like books that you could read together as a family, even if you have older children. And it just sounds like you're kind of reiterating that importance too, that it's really important to read with your kids, whether it's a book that y'all are reading together. Like we as a family read the 39 Clues back in the day, and my boys still love that. Right. And pick a book that you guys like and read together. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Even if it's not one that you enjoy. My oldest, when he was going through, I couldn't find hardly anything he was interested in. And he tuned in on one called Captain Underpants. And it had a lot of underpants boy kind of humor in it. And it was not my favorite, but to see him enjoying the reading and having fun and laughing with it and the things that the boys in those stories did, I was like, okay, it's not evil, it's not awful. Yeah, it's boys pulling pranks and acting goofy. But if it gets you connected with your child and doing something that he enjoys and you get to know a little bit more about him or her, then absolutely read with them as much as you can.
Like Book Camp Drone Underpants too. That's not my favorite either, but as a single mom, I was like, all right, I get it, kind of. I have brothers, so
yeah.
So what are some common signs that a child who's a good reader might start falling behind? And then what do parents need to do if they notice these changes?
I would say if they go from enjoying reading with you or enjoying doing their homework as much as kids can enjoy homework, because they don't really, to really fighting you or throwing a fit or having lots of behaviors when it comes to doing that, instead of looking at the behavior and saying you're behaving badly, talk to them and say, what's going on? Why do you feel like you need to behave this way? Talk to them. And if they really are struggling, again, it's a go meet with your child's teacher and find out how you can help. And look into some testing that could happen. There's so many learning disabilities that can happen through things that parents can't even imagine. How your child sees letters. It can be how your child takes auditory or verbal directions and how it goes into his brain and how he processes that or doesn't process that. And parents honestly aren't aware of the things that can help. So I think I answered your question. Talk to your child, be open, and be willing to listen.
Well, and I think that goes back to the importance of being a team with your teacher too, right? Because they are totally schooled and educated in those different nuances. And so if you're talking to your teacher and going, you know what, we were doing, all of a sudden now we're getting explosions. Before we were doing spelling, it was smooth. And now I can't get him to do anything.
Right.
Really talking and really being able to share exactly what's happening, right? So I sit him down and I tell him, he needs to sit and start working on this, and he just explodes. I can't even get him to sit down and hold his pencil. Right. And then
Yeah.
you can talk about that process through because your teacher really is like 99.9% of the time there to kind of help partner with you and come alongside you and help support you in school as well as, in home.
Yeah, they're definitely an advocate for your kids, and
Mm-hmm.
they're there to help them. Oh, and another story popped in my head, and then it popped back out again.
Oh, shoot.
But yeah, if I remember it, I'll bring it back up because I know it was an important point.
Okay, sounds good. So for older kids, are there different strategies or tools parents can use to help them overcome reading challenges?
Um, there is, and there's some specific things that you can work with on them. Larger words, for instance, can be really scary when you come to reading those larger words, and teaching them about prefixes and suffixes and pulling those off and looking at the base or the root word of the word, chunking those words up. And there's some specific ways you can do that. If you're not able to get in with your teacher, there are a lot of videos online that teaches you to help chunk up those words, to figure them out instead of just giving them the answers. The new way that we do teaching is really teaching your kids to focus on the sounds that each letter makes, putting those sounds together and figuring out what the word is from there. Also, it gets to the point where you do just have to give them the word, talk to them of the meaning of the word, give examples of the word, talk about it in the context of the story that you're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we touched a little bit on IEPs and 404. We didn't talk about 504s, but let's talk a little bit more in detail. So parents who are navigating the world of special education, can you explain again what an IEP is? And then what is the difference between an IEP and a 504?
Absolutely. IEP stands for individualized education plan, and it's specifically attuned to your child. It's saying your child is successful with this and he's struggling with this, and this is the plan that we're going to do. Set this goal, and this is our plan to get him to that goal. And they're daily testing to see, are we getting closer to the goal, or are we getting further away from the goal? Well, in order for your child to be put on an individualized education plan, they have to go through a lot of testing through the school. And one of the things that if you note one important thing, for instance, I've had many students who appear to be super, super smart, have huge, rich vocabulary. They can talk to you about anything science related or animal related. And then they go to read a book and they're 2 or 3 years behind on reading or 2 or 3 years behind on math. That's what the testing is for. The testing will show a discrepancy between your child's IQ level and his ability to do the work in the classroom. If there's at least a 2-year age gap, that's how they define that, yes, your child has a learning disability. So let's put him on this individualized education plan to help him. So that's where they make the goals and they make the plan to get to those goals, and they work on them on a daily or weekly basis.
How often do you have IEP meetings?
Actually, that's all up to the parents. An IEP meeting happens once a year. Officially, it has to happen once a year. But to be honest with you, if a parent has any concerns whatsoever about their child's education, they can call a meeting at any time. They can do it once a month. They can do it every 2 months. Or if you see something coming up that you hadn't seen before, call the school, make a meeting, and invite everybody who's involved with your child's education, whether it be speech and hearing, fine motor, the special ed teacher, even the principal.
Wow, that's
And
really empowering to know that. You don't have to wait to your year IEP meeting. You can call one anytime you feel like there's a need.
absolutely. And if you see something that's not working, or you hear about a goal that you think would be important for your child, say, hey, I want this goal added to my child's IEP so they can work towards that. And teachers are mandated to add whatever you think is important, because it's your child's learning that's important to you. So you have to be empowered as a parent to say, hey, I know he's struggling with this, so can we add this to his education plan? Absolutely. Meet with their teacher.
That's great. Okay, so then you've talked about an IEP. What is a 504?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, a 504 is something individualized to your child again. And a 504 could be something as, I won't say small is not the word that I'm thinking of, but as small as, hey, my child has a peanut allergy and they can get sick immediately if they even touch peanut oil. So you go in and meet with the school and you say, okay, these are the rules the school needs to follow in order to keep my child safe. So that could be a 504. I had a student that I put on a 504 previously, I think it was about 3 years ago, and this child really had struggle with his handwriting. Nobody could read his handwriting. He couldn't even read his handwriting. I took him through a year of handwriting classes to work on it. It didn't improve it. So we made a plan for when he moved to the middle school that he always had access to some type of a laptop or a Chromebook so that he could hand type his answers so that teachers were able to read his handwriting and he could complete his assignments. A 504 could be something as simple as that, or if you have a child that needs specifically small group because of his ADHD, a 504 can be written for that to help your child. Oh, let me say one more example is where I teach in Washington, the kids have to do from 3rd grade to 11th, have to do a state test that they do at the end of the year. And we have one student that recently got a 504 because he has such difficulty reading for the math portion, because the math portion has so much reading involved in it that there's a program online that the computer can read the math program or the math questions for him. So 504 allows your child with disabilities, with medical issues, to be treated as a whole child and be safe in the school environment and be able to learn as best that they can because of those, or in spite of those other issues that they may have.
So you mentioned that you had a student that had some difficulty with handwriting.
Yes.
So if my student has horrible handwriting, is that maybe a sign that they might need some extra help?
Could be. Yeah, absolutely. Depending on the age, though. Because if you think of kids that are just learning how to write in kindergarten and first, you're obviously going to see some signs there because they're just learning how to form the letters, hold the pencils, do it correctly. If it's still a huge problem in 3rd, 4th grade, and a large percentage of letters and numbers are written incorrectly, definitely go in and talk to your teacher, your child's teacher. Like I said, there's so many disabilities. Working with the brain and the eyes and the ears all connected together, you may not know what it is until some testing can occur within the school.
So it doesn't necessarily mean my child is destined to be a doctor, huh?
No. And to be honest, all kids are not destined to be doctors or lawyers or things like that. So don't put them in that category and make them be something they don't want to be.
I know, but if you have bad handwriting, doesn't that automatically mean that you're a doctor?
No.
All right.
Definitely not.
Okay. So as a mom and an educator, what is one piece of advice that you would offer to parents who are struggling to balance advocating for their child while also supporting them emotionally through learning challenges?
I think remember that one fact that I said is they are more than their learning issues. They love things, they care about things, and you have to step away from those issues and enjoy life with them. It brings me back to probably my very favorite quote as a teacher I learned years ago. It came from Einstein, and Einstein's quote was, and I probably don't have this exactly, everybody's brilliant, but if you judge a fish on his ability to climb a tree, he'll spend his whole life feeling worthless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so love your children for who they are. Find out what their interests are in. Spend fun and happy times with them, as well as the tough times. Yes, you are going to have to be there to help them through difficult times, but don't forget the fun times. I think the most eye-opening time in my life was I was a single mom. I raised my children by myself with no interaction from their father. And I got cancer when my kids were in third and fifth grade. And my type of cancer, I had to be in the hospital for a large amount of time. So my mom came and lived with me and the boys. And the first time I came back home after my diagnosis, I had to spend about 4 weeks in the hospital away from my children with the chemo and the different surgeries I had to do. And I came back and walked into the house. And one of the first things that I saw was my mom cooking dinner with the boys and playing with them and teasing them and joking with them. She had a great sense of humor. She was always cracking jokes, making fun of herself or making fun of themselves. And I had to stop and go, I've forgotten to do that with my kids because I was so intent on teaching them how to be good grown-ups. I forgot to have fun and enjoy life with them as much as I could have.
Yeah.
So don't forget that. Not only are you there to teach your kids and be their most important teacher, but you're there to enjoy life and have fun with them and make as many memories as you possibly can.
Absolutely, because I think I think a lot of parents slip into that, right? That whole mode of get up, get the kids to work, go get to school, go to work, do what I got to do. Then we got to go home. We got to do our routine. We do homework. We do food. Our dinner.
Right.
We do the bedtime routine, and we forget about using those times to have fun and laugh and tease your kids, and
right.
They are your gifts.
Put on music and dance around the house in your underwear as you're vacuuming and cleaning. And don't forget, if you do that, your children will probably go home and go to school and tell your teacher that you were dancing around naked, or I'm sorry, not naked, in your underwear. Because I did have a child tell me that one time. Every Saturday we clean the house and we dance to loud music in our underwear while we're cleaning it. The mom was really embarrassed, but it was very sweet and endearing.
It's amazing what teachers hear, right?
We hear a lot, yes.
And you take what they say with a grain of salt.
Absolutely.
And so should parents as they're listening to what happens with, their teacher.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in closing, what is your vision for helping moms to feel more empowerment when it comes to their children's education, especially when dealing with something difficult and challenging? How do they take steps today to make a difference? We kind of touched on that a little bit.
Have an open mind and accept kids. And I try to accept parents for who they are, whether they're educated or uneducated, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, whether they're Black, whether they're white. They're parents. They're learning like the rest of us. And don't judge. Don't judge your child. I don't judge parents. In fact, without patting myself on the back, my principal gave me a job a few years ago because I have the history of being able to get along with just about any parent. I'll say any parents that I've ever taught to their child. And so don't judge, just love and give people the benefit of the doubt and talk to them. Have an open mind. I think that's the best way I can answer that.
Wow, you have just given such an insightful communication. I just am really grateful for your wisdom and passion for helping young readers thrive. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and giving us practical ways to support our kids in the reading journey, as well as the educational journey. You kind of expanded on that. So And moms, if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe so you will never miss an episode. Also, be sure to check out the links on the show notes to register for the Unshackled Moms Alliance retreat in Lake Geneva. It's going to be a great time. You don't want to miss it. That's in September, but registration ends the end of June. So also thanks for spending time with me today. Keep showing up, keep loving your kids, and keep breaking free from anything that holds you back. Until next time, take care.